All right, good afternoon, everyone. It is now 3 o'clock. If I could ask my colleagues to join us at the dais.
Thanks for the chocolate. Remember, this is a house. Yeah, it's a household. You could have the extra. Oh, okay. Now it's like English.
No, everybody got one.
Okay, good.
All right, we're now going to get started. Invocation. Is there anybody from the audience who'd like to give the invocation? Juan, come on up.
You're on.
If you'll please bow your heads. Dear and gracious and holy Father in heaven, thank you, Lord, for this beautiful opportunity we have to come together to make decisions on behalf of Merced County and the city of Merced. Thank you for all of our leaders, and thank you for such a beautiful 2025. We look forward, Lord, to 2026. We place our trust in your hands and just let everyone make good decisions for all of the residents here of Merced County. And I just thank you, Lord, for their leadership and their health. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. All right, we'll call the meeting to order, and if I can ask Director Kale to join us or lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Juan, thank you, and Director Kale, thank you. Roll call. Joy?
Director Kale,
Here.
Director Reed, Director Ford, Director Samra, Director Lewis,
Here.
Director Serrato,
Present.
Director Pacheco,
Here.
Director Pedroso,
Here.
Director McDaniel,
Present.
Director Pereira,
Present.
Chair Silvera.
Present.
Thank you.
All right, we have a quorum. Next item of business is the approval of the agenda. Pleasure of the board.
Were there any corrections or changes?
Nobody.
I'll move to accept it.
All right.
Pedroso, second.
All right, so we have a motion by Director Pereira, second by Director Pedroso. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Moving on to public comment. This is public comment is available in advance of or during the meeting. See instructions for public comment on page 2 of the agenda packet. 3 minutes? It's 3 minutes. You're limited to 3 minutes. Would any members of the public wish to address this board? Not seeing anyone, we'll close the public comment period, and we will move on to reports and presentations, and we have Caltrans District 10.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the board. Good to be here with you today. I have a couple of funding opportunities, one federal and two state. The first one is the U.S. DOT BUILD program, which stands for Better Utilizing Investment to Leverage Development. There's currently $1.5 billion available for that funding. Applications are due February 24th. Excuse me. And this is for the funding surface transportation infrastructure projects with significant local and regional impacts. The other two are for state, which is the California Office of Traffic Safety. Their call for applications is currently out for the 2027 Highway Safety Program. Program goals are to prevent serious injury and deaths resulting from motor vehicle crashes. Applications should relate to one of the program priority areas, which include alcohol-impaired driving, distance driving, drug-impaired driving, emergency medical services, motorcycle safety, occupant protection, police traffic services, pedestrian and bicycle safety, and roadway safety and traffic records. So the deadline for the applications is January 31st, and depending on which project priority area, it kind of depends on how much funding is available for that. And then the third one is through the California Air Resources Board. This is the Community Planning and Capacity Building Grant Program. And then this program goal is to support community-led strategies that advance clean, shared, and active transportation solutions, such as access to transportation and mobility needs, planning clean and equitable transportation and land use solutions, building partnerships and workforce capacity, as well as engaging residents in meaningful community-driven planning. There's $7.3 million available for that program, and the deadline is February 10th. And then two things from our regional planning team. We've received quarter one quarterly report as well as process quarter one invoice for MCAG. And then 2 follow-up items. I was asked when the Hillmar 165 project was going to start, and that is going to be summer of 2029. And then as we kind of brought up last month when Corey Casey was here from project management, we'll come back to the board quarterly to give a presentation for project updates. And so we'll come back. I'll bring them back either in February or March to deliver the quarterly report on the projects. That's all I have. Wanted to wish everybody a safe and Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and looking forward to 2026. Happy to take any questions or any issues back.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Director Pereira?
Yeah, hi. Couple questions. One, so the Hillmar 2029 summer project, is that, which project is that? There's 2 going on there. There's a Gear Avenue stoplight, and then there's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like a complete streets project from August to Gear, down Lander.
I didn't look up the specifics. I asked Corey on the
Oh.
165 Hillmore, and he said
So that's got to be the big one. Is that date's pushed out compared to what we were being told? Do you know if there's a holdup or why it might be being pushed?
I didn't look into it. He just
Just gave it to you.
He just
Okay.
sent it back to me and said the date, and so I didn't
Okay.
do it anymore. But I'm happy to bring back. I can look into both those projects and give you a little update.
Yeah, the other one is a stoplight at Gear and Lender. And then something that I thought we were working on, and maybe you could give us an update next meeting. The intersection of kind of Highway 99, Highway 140, V Street, and 13th Street all kind of accumulate. And I had asked, and the mayor had asked for a right-hand turn arrow. And that was being evaluated, and then for a while, we just haven't heard much. So could we get an update on that as well?
Yeah, for sure. I meet with Elizabeth about every 6 weeks from MCAG staff, and we kind of talk about various things, and we've been discussing those parallel streets of 99 and the downtown, and that, it rather than kind of chasing these specific problems, how can we look at it holistically and kind of come up with solutions and a plan moving forward for connectivity and mobility?
That's kind of a unique intersection, and so what happened, the traffic can't go right because there's the off-ramp coming as well. That light's red, but they still can't turn right, but if there was a green arrow, the traffic stacks up underneath the freeway and back into the intersection on the north side of the freeway. So if that could happen, that would really alleviate a big traffic issue.
Okay. Yeah, of course, if there's, piecemeal things that we can do to mitigate before getting kind of a holistic plan, we'll definitely be open to that.
All
We'll
right.
use the high-speed rail money to re-engineer it.
And Caleb, we can connect too, and with Elizabeth, because I know Caltrans has come down and we did a walk audit of that intersection. There was some improved signage on the overhead of 99 heading south. So this would be a right-hand green arrow heading south on west. Sorry, yep, heading west on 140. Right, but it's a south on V Street to turn west on 140. So there's a lot of history there. And there was a handful of kind of, I dare say, call them low-hanging fruit, because they weren't all necessarily inexpensive, but they were identified as kind of the things we could be doing to improve that safety. So we can follow up on that.
Any other questions? Director Serrato.
Thank you, Chair. Supervisor Pereira took the first question I was going to ask you about that 140 and V intersection. There's been, as Stacy said, there's been work, a little bit of history on it. I know when Dennis Agar was here, we went out and he took me around. We toured the area, kind of showed him, and took our city engineer out there as well too. But our city engineer's gone; he's gone. So I think just restarting that conversation, just maybe getting everybody into the room at the same time would be really important. So if there's someone directly we should follow, who would be best to follow up with on that? Just to, I think to set up some sort of meeting and thank you to and Caltrans probably a year or two ago really improved the signage if you're heading southbound on V Street. So now the signs used to be small, but now they're much bigger. So that helped. But I still think there's more we can do. That one, and then two, thank you for the work being done on the 16th Street Bridge over Bear Creek in the city of Merced. There's been a lot of work ongoing there, but an issue that always comes up this time of year, every year, is the debris, mainly the big logs, tree branches that accumulate underneath the bridge, and that can increase the flood risk pretty significantly. So whatever can be done to help remove that debris, as is done occasionally, would be much appreciated as well.
Okay. Yeah, appreciate those comments, and yeah, I'll meet with MCAG staff, and then we'll loop in engineers and folks from the city as necessary, and I'll let maintenance know about the debris that accumulates under the 16th Street Bridge.
Thank you. Is it still Grace, or is somebody else who would because I think in the past I was supposed to email Grace or talk to Grace.
Yeah, you can email Grace, or you can email me directly, because since I'm coming, and I coordinate with the other divisions as well. Okay. So
perfect. Yeah, and I think just to the earlier point too, getting everybody together. Maybe we can do something, maybe we can't, but just getting everybody together on 140 would be, and V would be really would be nice.
Great.
Thank you.
And just to keep me honest, because I know we're going into this weird period where things will just go out into the ether, I do need to connect with someone on a right-of-way question in Los Banos on 152 and
The west side of town, south side of 152.
like across from the college.
Before the college.
Yep. So
Or the creek.
it's just more of like it's a sticky note on my desk, and I need to transfer it, and then we need to talk about it.
A little bit of history on that is this goes back to, this was, I believe, the landowner that owned it before Caltrans bought some right-of-way there way back in the day when they widened 152, and that now is potentially coming back available, and he feels like there's some right of first refusal information somewhere. So thank you for that, Stacy. I forgot about that. All right, not seeing any other questions for Caleb. We will move on now to, thank you, sir, appreciate it. Merry Christmas. Item number 5 is that these are informational items that are concluded for informational purposes. No presentation will be made by staff unless board members have any questions. Are there any questions on the information items? All right, not seeing none. We will move on to item number 6. This is the consent calendar. All consent calendar items listed below may be acted upon with one vote unless specifically removed for separate consideration by a member of the board, a member of staff, or a member of the public. This is 6A, B, and there is nothing in C.
I'll move to approve.
Let me open it up for public comment really quickly, sir. Would any members of the public like to speak on the consent calendar items, 6A and B? Not seeing anyone. We have a motion by Director McDaniels, a second by Director Pereira. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Moving right along to Merced County Association of Governments. Item 7, these are action items. They'll be considered separately by the board. Public comment will be available during each item. Item 7A, approve the programming of MCAG's $2,393,000 in cycle 4 and 5 LPP formula funds to the County of Merced for the Santa Fe Drive Rehabilitation Project from Merced city limits to Atwater city limits. And we will go to Elizabeth.
Thank you. The local partnership program that we're talking about today was approved as a part of SB1. It has an annual allocation of $200 million, and it was specifically approved to match the funding from agencies that implement their own taxes or fees on themselves. So you have to be a sales tax authority or have a development impact fee to qualify. So MCAG, as a transportation authority, is given a share of formula funds. The amount that we receive or allocated from the state, it changes based on the revenue of your sales tax measure, but it's around $590,000 a year. So we have 2 cycles, which is approximately 4 years, that needs to be programmed for the LPP project. The expiration for the first cycle is at the end of this fiscal year, so the project needs to be submitted by April in order to utilize those funds so that they don't lapse. As noted in the staff report, the board does have the Pioneer policy that prioritizes these funds for Pioneer, but they are not able to use them in this period of time. The project needs to be ready for construction by April 2026. So the county submitted to the Measure V call for regional projects, a project to rehabilitate Santa Fe between Merced and Atwater. And based on the schedule of that project and it being the right dollar amount, because you do have to bill 1-to-1 for that project, staff recommends that is a good fit for this program at this time. And that's a staff recommendation for you, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Director McDaniel.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing this forward. This is definitely much needed. This is a real regional project. But let's understand the impact to Santa Fe was because of the construction in '99, and I hope we're still having those conversations with Caltrans regarding this, because when we had to divert traffic off of 99, it heavily impacted. And I think some of these commuters have completely detoured from 99 or are using Santa Fe Avenue. But if we can continue those discussions, but I definitely recommend an aye vote on this, because this is truly needed. Every time we have a rainfall, the potholes continue to get bigger. And if we look at, this could be probably the heaviest commuted road in the county, quite frankly, besides the traffic through Los Banos. But this one here as local traffic, though, on a county road. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions by directors? Not seeing anyone. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item? All right, I see none. Pleasure of the board.
I'll move to approve.
We have a motion by Director McDaniel. Second by Director Pacheco. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Item 7B, this is approve the creation of the Measure V Emergency Fare Relief Program with an allocation of Measure V transit funding in the amount of $340,000 annually, and we will go to Director Guzman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is in response to discussion that occurred at the board meeting in November following the transit agency, our response to the federal government shutdown and the growing need of our community to have that economic relief of fare relief and also enhanced access to food distribution centers. If you recall, last month's item was set up to formalize and authorize an extended fare relief program while the federal government remained shut down, but by the time the board meeting occurred, that had already ended. So the request was for staff to bring back a policy or a framework that could establish this authority moving forward so that we'd have the flexibility to respond in emergency situations. It was not my intention to bring it back in the following month. The reason that I did is because we are finalizing the draft implementation plan for the 2025 Measure V implementation plan, and that is the appropriate place to put an allocation like this, to kind of have it be a formal allocation. That does not mean that we do not have time to discuss it. We absolutely do, but it is just an opportunity that made sense that if we could have a framework, we could plug it in. Now that draft plan isn't going to be, the hope is it will come to the board in January, if not February, depending on how these last measure meetings shape up. So there's more opportunity. This was just kind of a getting the conversation started and to see if this is what, it's what at least from a staff level made sense to us. So the allocation, I'll just start. So this idea is to have a dollar value that would allow us to go fare free for up to 60 days. And we picked 60 days because 30 days becomes very difficult depending on when and where an emergency, like when in a month an emergency hits, being that the board only meets once a month. So this would give us, and because our board items are due, now that we post the agenda a week before the TRB, we're posting the agenda for this meeting 2 weeks or more in advance. So giving it 60 days gives me the ability to hit the nearest board meeting, which in some instances may be, more than a month beyond what I have the ability to respond to. So that was where the 60 days came. The $340,000 annually is calculated by, the ridership that we've seen in the past. So this would propose to operate in the same way that we have done free fare programs in the past. This is just obviously for specific emergency situations. But we have had grant programs in the past, particularly over the summer, that will, we call them free fares for all, because we keep in place those existing fare programs that we already have. So we already have a Measure V program that pays fares for year-round on all services for veteran seniors and ADA eligible passengers. We already have partnerships with UC Merced and Merced College that pays for those subsidized fares for the college students. So when we get grants, or in this instance with this program, when we're talking about free fare for all, we're really just filling the gap of everyone else. So let's just say, for example, we institute this program, or as we've done it in the past, we will still track our ridership and will still charge those eligible riders to those other fare subsidy programs. So the Measure V, veteran seniors and ADA eligible will still pay for those fares. UC will still pay those fares. Merced College will still pay their fares. This would be to fill in everybody else who isn't already getting free fare service for a temporary amount of time. In the past, when we have had similar programs like Spare the Air or what have you over the summers, that dollar amount, or the ridership, the equivalent of the ridership, a fare box revenue that we would get, has been around the, I want to say it's 130 to 160 now that I just looked at that. 139 to 158. So that is where we use that number, and we took that as at kind of the top end, and because there is presumably an increased need in an emergency situation. It's not just a choice, right? When we have free fares during the summer for free fares for the summer program, it's still a choice for people. We're assuming we put a little more, up to 170 a month for the program, because we anticipate in an emergency it could be a higher demand depending on what it is. So that is where we took that times 2 months. That's where we came with the dollar amount allocation that we're recommending. I think the other thing that, two things that are important is the definition of emergency, and then how the actual expenditures would occur. I'll take those in opposite order there. Similar to how the Measure V program for veteran seniors and ADA eligible passengers, how that operates is the actual expenditures are based on actual ridership. So if we have $340,000 earmarked for emergency fares for the year, and we don't have qualifying emergency events, nothing gets actually charged. That $340 never moves out of the general transit account. It would just come out of the account equal to whatever the ridership was for those eligible populations during that eligible event. So it's not like it's gonna, just be pulled out and accumulate and we're gonna have all of this money sitting there. It's only when needed and only what is needed, and the rest would stay, and it wouldn't carry over from year to year. On page 71 of your packet, it starts the paragraph of the definition of what an emergency is. So it's talking about a condition or an event, declared or undeclared, that creates an immediate threat to life, safety, public health, access to essential services, or community stability, for which free fare transit service would support evacuation, emergency response, or relief efforts. So it says it's, emergencies include but aren't limited to. an officially declared federal, state, or local emergency, natural disasters, public health crises, evacuation orders, severe weather events, major infrastructure disruptions, significant economic hardship, such as a prolonged federal government shutdown. So under those, in one of those criteria, or meeting one of those events, I would have the authority to temporarily suspend fares up to 60 days or a value of $340,000 in non-subsidized fare ridership. So that means UC students still are getting, all of those existing all the time fare subsidies are already in place. We would just be using these funds for everyone else. I think the 340 is a generous number, because I think in reality, I don't say generous, I think it is a solid number, because in reality, what would happen is this is giving me enough time to come to the board to kind of get more feedback on how you'd like to move forward. But this would allow me to respond quickly. And in the past, we've, something that could have happened here, the early days of COVID would have, until we kind of figured out what was going on, we had free fares. We have used our transit services in the flooding that occurred in Planada and other areas of the county in the last few years, as well as responding to post-flooding recovery efforts of moving people between the fairgrounds, where there was some emergency services, and we've responded or been asked to respond in helping. This has been a few years now, but it happens, unfortunately, mass accidents on major roadways where there's a lot of people. Let's say it was in a different type of bus or a work van or what have you, where they ask us to come out and move people from a site. So these are the types of things that we're talking about. And so I know that was a lot, but we put a lot of work into this after the last meeting, and would look forward to any feedback that the board has. It is as an action item, but again, I don't want to, there's not a stressed importance in time. I just wanted to get it to you early, get what feedback I could, and if we can make it into the implementation plan, that would be great, but it's not absolutely necessary.
All right. Thank you, Stacy. Director Pereira?
So at the beginning of the budget year, 340 would be put in, and then at the end of the year, or the following year, then an amount, if there was money used, then the money would be refurbished to the 340 number. So if, say, this year we
annually
use 40,000 of it, end of the year you got 300 left. Next year we would put 40,000 and start with 340 again.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It's not a cumulative where you just keep adding 340.
It'll actually stay where it's at, and we would essentially submit for reimbursement. We would submit the date. I mean, it's like my right hand and my left hand, but there's lots of other people involved. We could be reimbursed for that amount up to 340. So we're not actually going to move it. We're just going to pay those fares out of that amount up to 340. But that's not really what you're asking. The fundamental issue, yes, we would not carry anything over.
Okay.
It's a use it or lose it.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah. I've had a lot of coffee, so I'm just.
Would any members of the public wish to address this item? Well, Stacey, I just want to say thank you. It really, I appreciate you running through all the semantics and the possibilities. It was more we kind of had this unique situation come up with the government shutdown, being kind of forced to make a decision that we really didn't have a policy around. Now this addresses that and gives you policy language that allows for it. So I think I have zero issues with it. All right. Pleasure of the board.
Second.
I think I have a motion by Director Pedroso and a second by Director Samra. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. All right, moving on to item 8. Okay, discussion items. These items will be presented separately in order to allow board members to ask questions or provide staff direction. And we're going to Measure V progress report again, Stacy.
Okay. I could I could hear my mother's in my ear, my mom in my ear telling me to spit out my gum in that last item. So sorry, I had to do that. Okay, I promise the last one was a lot longer than this. I'll fly through this because I will say typically I feel like I do a little bit of scolding on this item every 6 months, and I will not be doing that. So this is your 6-month progress report for Measure V regional projects. So just to set the stage, we are still working from the 2023 implementation plan. We will have a draft update, which is technically the 2025 implementation plan in January. So we are doing a progress report on the allocations of funding to the projects that were programmed in that plan. So next slide, please. Okay, there's a lot here, but let me just, the important thing is that bottom line. So the last time I gave you an update was in June of 2025, and in June it was for expenditures up to December of 24. So the important part is that from December of 2024 to October of 2025, there's been money spent. So here we are. This is the east side. It's a little more complicated because we do have very large projects that are just slower in moving, like the AME project, the Highway 59 projects. But on the east side, in just about that 1 year time, there was about $1 million spent. If you go, column A is the money that is available to that project as of today. It hasn't changed since October, but as of today, the red column are those that it's the expenditure amount. So that's how much, not in the year, but since inception since that project's been programmed, how much has been spent. And then the third column is what's then the balance left that is available to them. If you look to the blue, that's if there's future funds in years to come. That means that those blue dollars, at least in the column C, are not yet available. They're going to be in the coming fiscal years. So I certainly didn't want to represent that someone was not spending money when it wasn't actually in a current year to actually have access to. So you'll see, for example, I'll use AME because I'll be talking about that in a little while at the end of the meeting. But there's 25.6 million programmed in total that they're available, because there's 10 million out in the next fiscal years, but there's 25.6 million available. There's 3.5 million that's been expended. So there's a balance there of funding available to the project at 22 million, with another 10.5 million coming up in future funding years for a total program allocation of 36 million. So that's how you read the chart. I think one of the biggest things to report on the east side is that when I gave this update in the spring, there were a handful of projects that still hadn't executed their funding agreements, and that has since changed. So that is good news. And then the last thing are the two little red tags. Those are I've been using them in all of these reports. Those are the projects that haven't reported any new expenditures since the last update. So those show that there haven't been any expenditures in that time frame that I referenced. Any questions on the east side?
Questions?
Okay, next slide, please. These are the closed out projects for the east side. Nothing new has been added in the last report. So you can see then that the total expenditure for east side regional dollars, and it's now nine years we're coming up, is $6.5 million. So if you go to the west side, please, next slide.
West side.
Not anymore.
Marissa, next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so here's the west side. So you'll see, just look quickly if you can to the mid table where it says projects with funding but without executed funding agreements. That's what I was just mentioning. before. I include those because they can't they can't be reimbursed for any expenditures without that funding agreement. So that's the first thing you have to do is get that in place, and then you can start drawing down the funds. I'm going to address those first because they're a little simpler. The Ingomar grade, we have no expenditures because the money is still not yet accessible. It's out in a future year for the Ingomar grade reconstruction. And then for the 3 Los Banos projects, in this implementation plan that we're working on right now, there are a number of requests from the city of Los Banos they have decided to consolidate their funding from some of those other projects to deliver the Highway 165 and Vineyard and Dove. So they're really reorganizing a few things. So in that aspect, not having funding agreements is actually helpful in this situation. So if you look at the projects that are listed there in the works, you can see some of these are completed, and you might look and say, oh, well, Blossom, Street, that's done, or Palm is done. We don't move them into the closed out column until we get the final invoices and we've closed out the project, like a notice of completion or something to know that, okay, that's done and we've gotten the last invoice. We don't expect huge, you can tell on the Palm, there's 60,000 left there. And on Blossom, we do anticipate there being some cost savings or some leftover funds from Blossom, not $2 million, but some money. So once we get those closed out, we'll move. The Gustine 33140 signalization project does have a small expenditure that they have just recently, that they've told us is coming, but that project study report indicated that was not a warranted signal, that a signal's not warranted at that intersection, so they will not be pursuing that. And in the next plan, they're actually proposing to move those funds over to the East Hunt and Sullivan kind of work around town to connect to the county's project that was completed on Hunt. I think, and then as I mentioned, the Henry Miller rehab does have a good chunk of money, but there's also another chunk that's coming up in the future fund. So I've been talking with Nathan on kind of what the strategy is going to be to use those funds, but that's going to be out in the future a little bit. Hunt, Palm are both done. We just need to get the closeout invoices from the county. And then I know that there's some work happening now out at the 152 regional bike path that we've engaged with the county and the city and MCAG have been involved in. So there's a nice bottom line. Expenditure progress from December 2024 to October 2025 on the west side is $7.1 million. So kudos to the west side for delivering projects. Any question on anything on the chart?
Director Lewis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question on the 152 and I Street. Is that West I or I?
Oh,
Is that?
I'm looking at
I know
Elizabeth.
we have a left turn problem going north off of West I onto 152, and I'm not sure if this is the allegation for this one.
That sounds right.
I think it's
sorry,
West
I
I.
don't know.
Okay.
I should know. I know, but I don't want to say yes if I'm not 100% sure.
Okay. So could you reiterate?
Yep.
You said that the monies are being consolidated in order to meet the Dove and Mercy Springs intersection 165?
Yes. So this is so right now we've had we've been working with the jurisdiction since July on the requests for new programming for the 2025 update. So basically what are we adding to this? And the request that we had received over the summer, and we've talked to the city and Neuron most recently, is a proposal to consolidate, leave a little bit in the 152 I Street, 165 Scripps to make progress on, but to take the majority of those funds, put them on to the 165 Vineyard and Dove project to get that project completed. So that proposal, the way that it'll work moving forward is we're working through those numbers right now, and quite frankly, I think every jurisdiction who submitted a request submitted it in years that we have no capacity. They wanted it now rather than when we have money. So we're working on those numbers. But once we already have a West Side Regional Projects meeting, which is a subcommittee of this board. So it'll be all the electeds that represent West Side. We'll get a presentation from our staff on what those proposals are and make that recommendation. So, but that's what the city has recommended for those projects in Los Banos.
Okay, that's interesting, because I know the West I and 152 has been a real problem for a very long time. And, you know, multiple accidents there because people are making left turns and not waiting for ongoing traffic headed south on West I. So,
As you say that, I'm going to look, I don't know, Caleb, I won't put you on the spot, and maybe I'll put Elizabeth on the spot. Can you remind me which of the projects they're moving the money from because it's in Caltrans's project, or Caltrans is providing the funding? It might be the 152 and I. Let me look into that.
I know that Caltrans is supposed to widen 152 from Walmart going east to, I think it's past Mercy Springs down to Ward, I think it is.
Okay. Okay.
I'm not sure if that left turn lane is in there, so
Okay.
you know, I'd like to hear whether or not that money's been reallocated away from West I and 152 to Dove, which is the roundabout proposed by Caltrans, in order to get that moving. So.
Well, I know one of them is being reduced because Caltrans is bringing money to the table. Let me, I will get a summary to you of what's being proposed, and just know that any decision to move any of these funds will come back to the West Side elected group and then this body. So what we're working on with the city is just the city's proposal. So, but I'll send you an email with what that looks like.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions on West Side? Sorry, that's your
Questions?
question. That's your line.
That's okay. Not seeing any right now.
Okay. All right, so let's go to the next slide, please. So these are the West Side closed out projects. We added, since the last one, the last update, the Lorraine Street Bridge replacement project, Whitworth, and the Centinela project. So you can see there in total, their $8.5 million has been spent. And also a future project, so one that is not yet underway, as I mentioned, but has money coming in 27-28 is the Ingomar Grade Rehab. I think, next slide. And then this is just where we're at. So, we've had so many meetings with the jurisdictions. So in December, we met with the East and the West Side technical working groups. Again, we met with them first in July. We then had one-on-one meetings with each of the jurisdictions. We had them refine their applications. We had those due in or by early October. We held a second round of group meetings, and the fundamental challenge is that when we said we have a little bit of money, but we're programming in years 28, 29, 29, and 30, everybody submitted funding requests for next year, the year after. And we had already filled that capacity. So trying to figure out a way to keep projects that are previously programmed moving and still do what we can. But I kind of felt like my mom mode, where if both of my kids are unhappy, I'm doing my job because no one's getting in their way. But I think we've gotten a couple of options that we have scheduled. Stephanie's been working on getting the East Side and the West Side Regional Projects Committee meetings, which are all of you, set for January 12th. We'll do both in the same day. And then we were hoping to bring the recommendations to the board in January, but that's only 3 days later. So we'll be bringing those recommendations in February with the request to release the draft document. And then we'll have to hold 2 public hearings and ask for board adoption in March. And I think that's my last slide.
All right. Any members of the public wish to comment on this item? Any members of the board wish to comment on this item? Not seeing one. Stacey, if you go back just a couple slides, I just want to remind everybody, right? Those of you that were here when we worked on Measure V, we had to work through a lot of jurisdictional issues. We had a couple jurisdictions that ultimately didn't support the item, but still had enough support to get it. We're 10 years into this deal, and reality says if you want to go back out for one of these to re-up, this is a 30-year tax. When you get to be about 22 years in, is when, depending on the cycle you want to put it on or whatever, you don't want to wait till the last year to find out whether or not you're going to be able to re-up it. I just want to remind everybody, when we see a lot of these zeros sitting there, some of them are understandable because you have money coming out in a further year and that you need to finish them. But if we don't deliver on projects, it's going to be really hard, whether it's any of us sitting here or the next group of electeds that are up here. If you're going to go back out to the voters and tout all the great things that you're doing with Measure V, and I get it, at the local level, we are doing stuff with our local share of Measure V money, but on these regional projects, when you're sitting there and you're looking at, $38 million of program money and 19 million of it on the west side still being available, if we're not delivering on projects, and if you go back 2 more slides to the east side one, same thing. And I get it, that one's kind of the outlier because you do have AME, which is such a big project, and we just got some great news on that's moving forward. So you're going to see that money get expended, I would say here in the next few years, quite a bit of it. But all in all, we need to keep putting pressure on our jurisdictions to keep spending this money. That we need to be realistic about it. When you're sitting out there and you look at projects, and I'm just going off the top on Atwater, you got $7.8 million of funding, 7.9. You still have 7.5 left. And all we're doing by waiting is, when that number came up and you put the 7.892 million, that was a number that was designed how many years ago? And here we are, fast forward 3, 4, 5 years later, and you're having that number is not going to work no more. The cost has gone up more. So I just want to encourage everybody as electeds to encourage our staff. We have to stay current on these projects and keep them moving. The county, we're in a unique situation because we're so big. We have 1,750 miles of road that we're responsible for. We are, in a lot of cases, where the regional projects are. It's in the unincorporated areas that are connecting it to highways and to other communities. It becomes a little bit easier for us to put that money to work. But the local jurisdictions, the city specifically, we've got to keep pressure on our staffs to keep this money, to keep moving on these projects. Because what's going to happen is you're going to see jurisdictions that have things that are ready to go, because of what I talked about before, costs are rising, and you have program money to one project, but it's not going anywhere, not getting done. I can see the ask coming back to this board: are we going to force a jurisdiction to unallocate some resources from one project to put it to another project because we want to actually see the money be getting done? I don't want to see that happen. I would just encourage every one of us as electeds to be having those conversations with our local jurisdictions on, we need to keep our foot on the gas pedal on this deal and keep moving these projects forward. All right. Yes, go ahead, Director Lewis.
Before you move forward, and I apologize for not bringing this up during my speaking time, but as you all know, there was a period of time there with a old elected council that they gave back money that was set aside for a bike walk path to Merced Junior College, Los Banos. And it was my understanding that this organization was going to work on reallocating some money to make sure that project would move forward. Is that still in the works?
Yeah. If you go forward 2 slides, it still says County Highway 152 Regional Path. It just, all it did, Ms. Lewis, is it moved from being, the city at that point didn't want to be the agency responsible, and the county took it over. So it's still sitting out there. I know that there's currently at the, you look at the top columns there, the bottom one right there, yeah. And it's, there is a working group that has the college involved, and really why you've seen some slowdown on that, I'm going to say, call it slowdown, is as Caltrans is proposing a project you just mentioned, a larger project, which we asked to kind of have them consider that in their scope of that project.
So it kind of sounds like, even with that project for us on the west side of 152 and I Street, that we need to get some sort of commitment from Caltrans as to how soon they're going to move on that project. Because I heard that they were going to move this coming year, 26, 27 fiscal year. And I don't know, it may be delayed. So in order for clarification to move forward for certain districts, especially for Los Banos and for me, it's important to know exactly where things are. And certainly I'll be passing this on to our city manager to report out where we are in these projects so that the council knows when we're expecting this money to be allocated and how soon it's going to be done. That needs to move forward
And I think
in our
Stacy-
city.
I think Stacy would appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
And just to add that the TRB also had this exact same presentation, so if you just tell him that you're referring to the same report that he got during the TRB meeting, he'll know what you're referring to.
Director Pereira.
Yeah, and Director Lewis, this may or may not be my place to say, but I'll say it, and then if it's positive or if it's usable, use it, and if it's not, forget it. But the Pioneer Widening Project was one of the first projects that was funded, and it has not moved very well. And so that would be one that you would want to maybe keep, go back to your staff and ask them where it's at and what's happening, and keep on that one.
And I hear you, and it is moving forward.
Okay.
Some of you would like to come and visit Los Banos. You'll see the progress that we're making. Unfortunately, we had a council that didn't know what they were doing, and I'll just say
I'm with
that
you.
openly.
I just was making sure
So,
you're aware.
yeah.
And
But we are
Good.
moving forward on that project, and it's coming to fruition.
Good.
Yeah,
Great.
thank you.
Great to hear.
I'll just add a little bit on the Pioneer conversation. So we had intended to have a Pioneer Road update to this board because it is the subject of our Pioneer policy in June, and about I think a few weeks before we were solidifying that, there was a change in staff, the project lead, and then they had an interim city manager, and we didn't feel, and he made a lot of movement on the broader conversation around the Pioneer project, and we were planning to have them on this month's agenda. And then they got a new city manager. And again, we didn't feel like it was fair to have him come. So he is aware, Neron is aware that there is an outstanding item to have a broader conversation with the board about the Pioneer project. I believe, as Director Lewis just mentioned, the Ortigalita intersection project is underway. That is a component part of the broader Pioneer project, but has been successful in using a variety of funds to deliver that project. But in terms of kind of the big, when this item went on the programming document, it was intended to be $8.5 million for right-of-way for the entire corridor to be widened. And that vision has changed multiple times, and I think it's becoming more bite-sized, as you see with the Ortigalita project. But we had a conversation with Neron on Wednesday about the need to get the ducks lined up, and when he has them all lined up within the next, pretty quick, couple months, have him here to do the broader strategy and talk to the board about what the vision of the project is. So.
Perfect. All right. Director Serrato.
I think everything you said earlier, agree 100%. I think it's really important for us at the jurisdictional level, at the cities, to pick good, especially as this goes over the next 5-10 years, to pick projects that are easier to deliver. We pick really big, difficult, expensive projects round one. And so even though there's a lot of work being done, the average person on the street says, nobody's doing anything. Why are we doing this? But picking Santa Fe is a classic example. A much easier to deliver project, high visible, high impact, closer to and for the regional projects too. Obviously the regional projects, those tend to be county-ish projects, but the county too, especially when it comes time to potentially go out to the ballot again, making sure these projects go through the cities, closer to the cities, so that there's visibility, there's impact. I think where the votes are, where the people are. So I think that's an important thing to note too, because if people in the cities feel that nothing's getting done in the city, then they're obviously less likely to support it. So Santa Fe is a classic example. 16th going through, we haven't got there far from it, but like another example would be through the city of Merced coming off 99, Highway 59, or coming off there, 16th Street would be very visible, highly traveled. It had a lot of benefits as well. But roads like that, I think, plenty going through Los Banos as well. But just thought, I think, as we move along, get through this round of big projects, once those are done, then you got to pick, we got to hit doubles instead of home runs, singles and doubles. All right. So.
Very good. All right, not seeing any other comments. We'll move on to that was a discussion item. Items 9 and 10 is the TJPA. There are no items, so moving on to item 11 for the Merced County Regional Waste Management Authority. Action items, again, they will be presented separately. Item 11A is to approve the fiscal year 25-26 CIP budget amendment, moving $400,000 from CIP number 80012, $250,000 from CIP number 8065, and $450,000 from CIP number 80066 for a total of $1.1 million to CIP number 80078 for the purchase of an Air District compliant low NOx X flare at the Billy Wright landfill, and authorize the ED to enter into a contract for the purchase and startup of an Air District compliant low NOx X flare in the amount of $1.1,184 with selected vendor Perennial Energy LLC. And we will go to James.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was going to offer to read that for you, but you did a great job there. Just real quick, we are actually going through this work a few years earlier than we had planned. That's the reason for the budget transfers. As you know, Billy Wright Landfill, for years we've been monitoring. About a year ago, our surface emission monitoring showed that we had exceeded the threshold, which put us into the trigger of having to develop a landfill gas collection design and start moving forward with actually installing the system. This is the first step of that. The design plan was submitted to CARB and the local air district last month. We're moving forward. We went out to RFP to actually purchase the flare. As you know, these are extremely complicated technical pieces of equipment. We have to have the exact components that are going to be installed to go through the permitting with the local air district. So that's the reason we're buying the flare now. It has about a 6-month lead time. We'll be coming back to you probably in late winter, early spring to award a project for the actual construction of all the system. So quick note, the first $700,000 that Director Chair Silvera discussed there are actually cost savings, unexpended funds from the phase 3 cell that we just built out there and the leachate improvement pond, or impoundment. Wanted to just make a quick comment on that project. As you can see from the cost savings, we only spent about $7,000 of the contingency that was allocated for that project. The other note I want to make is that we actually got the approval from the water board to utilize those facilities within 24 days of the submittal of the report. And I sent out an email thanking all of the consultants that were involved, and also to the regulators. In my 30 years in the solid waste industry, I've never seen a water board approval come back that fast. That's typically a 3 to 6 month process. We submitted the CQA report. They had us comments in 10 days. We responded in 3 days, and 3 days later they approved the project. So honestly, I was blown away by that. But we are now.
You just found your unicorn right there, buddy. You just found it. There it is.
I don't know what it was. That project came off extremely well, and it's a thanks to the staff and everybody that was involved with it. So again, this project, it's something we have to do. We're moving forward. We're actually meeting with the consultant in about 2 weeks on the final construction plans for the gas system. I will add, there is a little monkey wrench being thrown in that now, and that is CARB's new landfill methane rule revisions. We're going to have to make some adjustments and install parts of that gas system sooner again than we had planned, but we'll adapt to that and be ready to go. And with that, we're asking the board for approval for those 2 actions, to authorize the budget transfer and authorize the executive director to enter into the contract.
All right. Any questions by members of the board? Not seeing anyone. Is there any members of the public who wishes to comment on this item? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Finish.
Not seeing anybody from the public, we'll bring it back to the dais. Director Pereira.
Yeah, do we have the construction money budgeted?
We do not.
Okay.
And that's when we come back. We are going to have some additional cost savings from other projects that have been closed out, and we'll be looking at that, and then our fiscal year 26-27 budget to allocate the additional funds we'll need. We don't have a firm engineer's estimate yet.
Yeah.
So rather than
I get
give
it.
you maybe a number, like I said, when we come back in probably March, we'll have good numbers.
If you're ready, I'll entertain one.
Motion to approve.
All right.
I will second it.
We have a motion by Director Lewis, a second by Director Samra. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, James. Moving on to item 12, discussion items. Again, they'll be presented separately in order to allow board members to ask questions or to provide staff direction. We have the master plan update, and we're going to go again to James.
Thank you again. As most of you know, late last year, we had some discussions here at the board about the future capacity at both of our landfills. We went out and put out an RFP. If we go to the next slide, can I control it, Marissa? Okay. We awarded a contract in May of 2025, held a kickoff meeting in July. Our staff and the consultant, SCS Engineers, have been meeting monthly. We formed an ad hoc subcommittee of this board in August, and that committee had its first meeting in November. The purpose of this summary is to just give you a highlight of what we discussed with the subcommittee. Again, the overall master plan will probably be brought to you sometime this summer for final approval, but we didn't want to wait until then to keep you up to date what we're doing. So today's kind of a quick summary. The next slide. This is on page 89 of your agenda, is a memo from SCS that was a brief of the scope and the deliverables. I just want to highlight the two items I'm going to talk about today. I'm actually going to take the one on the bottom first, and that's a review of potential privatization of some or all of the solid waste operations. And then I will talk about some conceptual expansion scenarios to expand the facility life. So the first item there's a technical memo from SCS Engineers. It's in your agenda as page 90. Go to the next slide, please. We asked them to look at, what opportunity was there to contract out the operations of the landfills. And this was kind of the key statement they gave us out of that, was that it's not just a yes or no. There's a number of things we need to look at. And if we go to the next slide, you'll see there on the left-hand side those factors, things like regulatory compliance, level of service and control, community pride, organizational value, capabilities of staff, ability to respond to technological, regulatory, and socioeconomic changes. And what the consultant did is they went and looked at each of these areas. They looked at our documents, they looked at our budgets, and they looked at it as kind of like a stoplight signal. If there was no concern, we got a green mark. If there had been any concerns, we were in compliance, but just barely, that would have been yellow. And obviously, if there'd been anything that was significantly out of compliance, it would have been a red mark. So, we've had discussions with them. We talked about this a little bit with the subcommittee last month. And the key here, if we go to the next slide, this was an excerpt from their summary. Based on our review of the operations, staffing, regulatory compliance, equipment deployment, and budget discipline, we do not believe contracting out the landfill operations would result in significant cost reductions, operational improvements, or operational efficiencies. Now, I did caveat that with a statement that if the board wanted to look at the cost of contracting out, we could feasibly put out an RFP and see what kind of numbers we got. Again, their justification for this was, we don't really see a reason to do this. If the operations were not being conducted efficiently and well planned, sure, there's maybe some reason to go look for something. But at this point, we got a lot of good comments from the consultant about the knowledge of the staff, the operations, the pride they take in the way the facilities look. So I was very pleased with that. And I'll stop here for a minute and pause and let any of the members ask questions if they have any.
Any questions at this point? Not seeing it? Okay, proceed.
And again, as I said, we will come back in the summer for an overall approval of the plan, but this was one of the key things we wanted to bring out and just say, this kind of dictates how we're going to look at everything else in the plan is, how are we going to operate going forward? So at this point, our assumption is we're going to continue to plan as if we're operating as we are currently in-house. Does that cover what we were looking for, Stacy?
I believe so, unless, I looked to Chair Silvera was also part of that conversation, and I think the approach to making the determination was sound in the sense that it was typically, and we see this in other parts of our work, there's a fundamental or a root issue or reason to contract out agreements that we do for transit or what have you, and their kind of framework for how they assess that determination for us was similar in that it said, what would be the problem that's being solved by going contracting out those types of services. So I think he summarized it well. I don't know if Chair Silver, if you have any feedback from the meeting we had.
Listen, I'll put it more simply. They basically said it's not broke, don't go try to fix it. That's what I took out of it.
What he said.
All right, thank you. Okay, we'll move on. The next area we want to talk about is working with the consultant. We've begun, kind of brainstorming. What can we do with our existing facility? At Highway 59 right now, we have about 27 years of capacity left in what we call Phase 6, the northern end of the landfill. And in a minute here, we'll go through a couple of slides and pictures depicting these areas so you have a better visualization of what we're talking about. So right now, we have capacity until late in 2052. I'm not sure any of us will be here then, but it is a kind of finite time frame. So we began looking at things. Trying to think, I think most of you here, maybe Director Pacheco, the valley fill option. And let's go ahead and jump to the next slide, Marissa. That's Phase 6. Okay, so I'll cover this first. This is showing the north end of the landfill. That area outlined in red is the undeveloped portion of the landfill. It's about 80 acres. That's where we have that 27 years of remaining capacity. So we are currently in cell 6B. We have C, D, E, and F to build over the next 27 years. We'll go to the next slide. So here's the valley fill option. Now we're looking at the south end of the landfill. The portion to the left of the red, I'm not sure what that shape is, but it fits around there. That is Phase 5, which is the lined cell that was constructed. Everything to the right of that is phases 1 through 4 that are unlined. So the valley fill option is to go back in that center section where our infrastructure used to be, put a liner on the floor there, and then fill up the slopes of the two hills on either side. Depending on the final design and option there, we'll gain about 12 years of airspace by doing that. That project was originally conceived of about 10 or 12 years ago. It was delayed because of the landfill gas migration issue we had to the east of the landfill. As I previously reported this year, that was resolved. It's no longer an issue, and we are working towards submitting a work order with the consultant to start developing the permitting and plans to use that area. The next area I want to talk about is what's called Alternative 2. There's a set of drawings in your agenda. There's some line drawings, some schematics. This is a little simpler way to try to explain what those are showing. Here on the south and southeast portion of the landfill, we have an area that is undeveloped. It's currently not permitted for waste, so we do have to go back through Cal Recycle and the Water Board to permit it. We looked at this with the assumption that we were not buying any additional property. There's some other options in the plans that assume maybe we could buy some additional property. And in that case, what we do is that left edge moves all the way out to our property boundary, because basically we would be relocating our stormwater and leachate ponds. But in this alternative, we leave them where they're at. We just use the unused space that's there. And that area there could possibly give us another 25 years worth of capacity. The next slide is alternative 2B, and that's taking that area we were just talking about. And here you can see up the top there, that diagram, the orange line reflects the current design height of that area. If we went back in and added 30 feet on top of that, that would gain us an additional 8 years of capacity. So again, these are all theoretical, conceptual. We have to go through the permitting and everything else, but they're possibilities. And if we go to the last slide here, alternative 3 would be go back to the northern end to phase 6 and add additional height there as well. And that would also gain us about another 8 years. So if we go to the next slide as a summary of all those again, basically we're looking at the possibility of adding more than 50 years to the current life of the Highway 59 landfill, which takes us out to the year 2105. So we've got some great opportunity there. You know, I think any other solid waste agency would be pretty happy with approximately 80 years of capacity. So as we move forward, you know, these will be options that are presented in the master plan. None of them will be approved by the master plan. That's something we'll come back to the board. Okay, we want to implement this portion of the master plan. We'll go through the permitting and the construction and extend the life of the landfill. So with that, are there any questions about those possibilities?
Are there any questions by the board? Not seeing any? Okay.
Okay.
That's it? Finishes you up, right? Would any members of the public wish to comment on this item? Not seeing anyone. This was an informational item, so we'll move on to the next, or discussion item, I'll call it, and then we'll move on to 12B, the Highway 59 landfill gas to beneficial use update.
Over to Patrick.
Good afternoon, everyone. So as some of you may know, Highway 59 landfill has pursued a beneficial use project in the past, and that fell through back in 2021. So staff began looking at developing an RFP to solicit developers for the project. As we talked with other agencies, consultants, and industry professionals, it became pretty clear that we needed some outside technical assistance in order to protect the interests of the authority. So on August 1st, we went under contract with GHD. They are going to be helping us with that engineering and technical and procurement kind of assistance guidance approach. And with part of their first phase, their first task was to look at basically the whole sphere of beneficial use technologies, describe them for us. It's kind of like an educational thing, educate us on the markets, but then also dive into what's feasible given the quantity and the quality of the gas specific to Highway 59. So with that, they prepared this project pathway memo that was linked in the agenda. And Kim Domptail, the project director for GHD, is here to give a presentation as a summary of their findings and recommendations. I'll turn it over to you now, Kim.
First, apologies for my voice. I got a cold just before the holidays, so hopefully the microphone is pretty close to me and you can hear me well.
We can hear you fine, thank you.
Okay, great. I'm also sharing my screen. I think I can see on the video that you can see. So I have a brief presentation to describe our scope, our approach, and our preliminary results to date. So just to set the stage, as Patrick said, right, the objective is to beneficially use the landfill gas at Highway 59. The preferred approach is to issue an RFP to select, negotiate, and contract a third party to design, build, finance, operate, and maintain the facility. So the two key project drivers are, one, to use the landfill gas, which is currently flared, and thus reduce emissions. And number two, this is an opportunity to provide a new source of revenue for Merced County. So GHG was contracted earlier this year in August. We completed this review of the technology pathways available to beneficially use the landfill gas. We've also compared various procurement and contracting approaches on similar projects. The next step will be to support the RWA staff in developing the RFP, as well as evaluating proposals and conducting interviews, and finally assisting with contract negotiations. So we just completed this first phase, and this will be the focus of this presentation. So first, in terms of methodology, fairly straightforward. First step was to evaluate the resources available for the project. So that's mainly the landfill gas quantity and quality. Second, we reviewed the universe of technologies available and typically used on landfill gas project, and we assessed them specifically for Highway 59 based on technology maturity, feasibility, as well as market opportunities. Third, for two of the main options, producing electricity or renewable natural gas, you need to interconnect with your local utility. So we did request a preliminary screening from PG&E to make sure the local gas grid or electrical grid had enough capacity to accept the gas or the electricity produced. And fourth, we reviewed various procurement and contracting approaches, as I mentioned, and that was looking at both projects in California as well as in other states. So let's take a look at the first step, the resources available. So first, in terms of landfill gas quantity, the model predict that, you're generating about 1,800 standard cubic feet per minute of landfill gas at 50% methane. We currently measuring more like 1,300 SCFM of gas collected, because that's about a 71% collection efficiency. So that's the current picture. The project, however, will start in a couple of years. It may last for, typically 20 years. So we really need to look at the gas available during that project period. So for that, we took the gas curve that was developed by others earlier this year. You probably have seen it before. So in dark purple here, this is the curve of all the landfill gas produced at Highway 59 from the various phases. So that's the projected curve. And so if you look at the project life between 2029 and 2049, say, you will produce between 2,100 and 3,700 SCFM of gas. This is the projected generation. If we assume the same collection efficiency of 71%, you have about 1,500 to 2,650 SCFM of landfill gas available for the project. So that's the gas quantity available. Now we need to look at the quality of that gas. So based on recent sampling last year, and we looked at previous years, data on previous years, you have about 45% methane content in the landfill gas. The balance of gases being carbon dioxide, nitrogen, oxygen, and H2S. The main challenge here with this gas quality is the nitrogen level. Especially for the renewable natural gas alternative. So if you want to upgrade that gas to have 98% methane, basically like pipeline quality gas that you can inject in the grid, you need to remove that nitrogen, and for that it's doable, but you basically need a cryogenic step, and so that limits the number of technology provider, suppliers, or developer that can handle that gas quality. So we discussed with RWA staff the possibility of managing the well field to keep that nitrogen level. Typically, you would like 8 to 12% maximum. However, we concluded that that would require significant investment to the gas collection and control systems. So unlikely to be done in the near future or for that project. Like, better to ask the developers, require that they are able to handle that gas quality. So that would be a key aspect of the RFP and the evaluation and negotiation. So that's the gas, available. Now let's look at the universe of option available. Sorry. So this is the universe of options. First row, if you will, like the top 4 here, are what we are currently seeing at landfill throughout the U.S. So first one, direct uses by an local industrial users, typically for heat, in a boiler, or it could be leachate evaporation. So that's a fairly straightforward use and limited gas requirement. Second, which is the most common currently, is generating electricity and or capturing the waste heat. Various technologies available, and then you can export to the grid. Third one, renewable natural gas. So just talked about it, was the nitrogen level. So upgrading the gas quality to be able to inject in the gas in the gas grid in the pipeline. And fourth, renewable compressed natural gas for on-site fueling. For example, if you had if the waste trucks coming to the landfill were CNG fueled. So that's another option that does not require the connection to the pipeline. The second row are more emerging technologies for landfill gas application. You could produce hydrogen, either using the gas to produce some electricity and power an electrolyzer, or cracking that methane molecule into hydrogen. You could produce electricity and process data and export data instead of electricity, for example, when grid connection is limited. Or you could also utilize, monetize that CO2 portion of the landfill gas. So these are emerging applications that we are seeing at landfills, but definitely, a more limited track record, and you'll see kind of like market challenges. So just to look at some numbers on current projects in the U.S. This is from US EPA, LMOP, like the Landfill Methane Outreach Program database. There's about, just under 800 projects in the US at about 400 or 500 landfills. And you can see 70% of them currently produce electricity, the rest being RNG and direct utilization. So that's, excuse me, looking at all the projects that have been developed to date. However, if you look at new projects like developed in recent years, you can see the vast majority are upgrading the gas to RNG. So this chart is from the American Biogas Council and is looking at both landfill gas, biogas from farm digester, wastewater treatment plant, food waste digester, and you see like 95% are going RNG. If you look at the LMOP database and filter for projects in the last few years, it's also like 80% of the new landfill gas project are RNG. So this is the big picture. Now let's focus on Highway 59 and applicability there. We'll do, kind of like a deeper dive on the electricity and RNG pathways, which are the two main ones. And then we'll have a summary table for all these pathways to kind of see the technical feasibility, the market, and where that leads us for the procurement approach. So looking at the electricity pathway, first step was the interconnection with the utility. If you look at PG&E portal online, the distribution line near the site shows no capacity to host additional generation. However, we did submit Rule 21 pre-application, and the results show about 3 megawatt capacity. Potentially, there could be upgrades to accommodate more, because if you can see here at the beginning of the project, you could have an installed capacity of 5 megawatt. But at this stage, the costs are unknown, so it will be upon the developer to go through the next step with PG&E and evaluate, the potential requirement to export more. We did also connect with the Merced Irrigation District, and that would be challenging and costly to connect to their infrastructure. So that's on the interconnection side. In terms of the technology, the most commonly used technology at landfills are reciprocating engines throughout the U.S. However, in California and in the San Joaquin Air District, air permitting might be a challenge. Other technologies, micro turbines might be suitable. That was planned in the previous project that was contemplated by Merced County. However, there are fewer projects and suppliers. Linear generators are an emerging technologies, low emissions. They qualified for the 30% investment tax credit, but they also have a limited track record with landfill gas and limited number of suppliers. They're definitely being used in other applications, including biogas like wastewater treatment plants. Other technologies are not recommended here, like turbines typically are used for larger flows. Solid oxide fuel cells are unproven on landfill gas. I talked about the sizing, so just looking at the offtake market, you have a couple of options for the electricity that will be exported to the grid. You could sell on the spot market and have renewable energy credits. You could secure a long-term power purchase agreement that would be less volatile. The utilities, they have feed-in tariffs, although they're typically limited to 3 megawatt export. On site, as you know, there's very little demand, so you would need to look at export options. So key challenges would be, in that price volatility and securing offtakes. Now let's look at the RNG option. So similar approach. First, the interconnection with PG&E. So we did request that preliminary screening study. You have 2 pipeline options. Both are about 4 miles away, and they can accommodate 1,200 at one site and 1,800 at the other injection point site, 1,800 at CFM. So that should be sufficient for your project. In terms of the technology, they're all very mature. You have a lot of options, except for that high nitrogen level. So that does limit, because you need that cryogenic step. That's the main challenge here, but it's doable. Sizing, so you have at the beginning, up to 600 SCFM RNG, so you could see the pipeline could accommodate that. That would increase the electricity demand. If you recall from the previous site, on site, you currently have maybe 100 kilowatt demand. That gas upgrader, depending on the sizing, would require 1 to 2 megawatt of electricity. In terms of offtake, a couple of options again. First one would be if the gas is injected in the grid and you have a transportation off-takers, like a CNG fueling station at the end, you can benefit, you can leverage the EPA RINs, Renewable Identification Number. That would give you the most revenue potential, but the RIN prices have been volatile, and the CNG fueling station market in California is being saturated. So these will be the challenge with this option. Second option is to contract with the voluntary RNG off-takers. University of California, Amazon, Nike, they are looking to purchase renewable natural gas for their internal decarbonization goals. That would provide you a long-term contract with a fixed price, so more certainty. You could ask the developers to have a balanced portfolio, and ask to sell maybe 80% on the voluntary market and 20% on that more volatile market. The third option here is the investment-owned utility, PG&E, SoCalGas. They have a mandate to procure biomethane or renewable natural gas under Senate Bill 1440. Landfill gas currently does not qualify. However, there is a new guidance expected from CPUC in the new year, and we expect that landfill gas will qualify. So that may be another avenue for a long-term fixed price contract. So the risk, again, kind of like that volatility with the RIN market and a little bit on uncertainty here on the offtake, but you can see you have various options. So finally, let's look at all the options again together. Direct industrial uses, the main challenge, technically feasible, but the main challenge is that you don't have nearby large-scale off-takers, so we rated that as unlikely. Electricity, we just went through it. The main challenge is the grid connection challenges. Otherwise, they could handle the gas quality that you have. You have various technologies available, various off-take options, so it's potential, but contingent on that grid capacity. RNG, that would be the highest capex. You have, that gas upgrading and also the 4-mile pipeline extension. In terms of revenue, that would be your highest revenue potential, probably with a mix of a long-term fixed price contracts and some on the market. Renewable CNG, this is feasible, this is doable, and you would avoid that costly interconnect with the utility. However, there is limited on-site demand for CNG fueling, so we rated it as unlikely. Hydrogen, you have a couple of options. I think I mentioned initially. If you were to use the gas to produce electricity and power an electrolyzer to crack a water molecule, this is a very low efficiency pathway. If you want to do like thermal cracking of the methane molecule, pyrolysis or reforming of the gas, there is currently a very limited track record with landfill gas. So these would be the challenges technically. In terms of the market, this is a very emerging market. You may have heard that the funding from the Department of Energy for the California Hydrogen Hub, ARCHES, was canceled in early October. So some challenges. California remains committed to hydrogen. We already have 50 hydrogen fueling stations, and some transit agencies are using hydrogen fuel cell buses and vehicles. So there may be options, but it's definitely a riskier pathway, if you will. And then the other alternatives, processing data, utilizing CO2, it's all very much an emerging market for landfill gas, so we also rated it as riskier. So in conclusion, you can see you have a number of potential pathways. So probably, the approach will be to issue an RFP that is technology agnostic to really get the best options from the market. That would be a bit longer and more challenging to draft in terms of the contract terms, since you have different options. If there was a clear winner, you could issue a technology-specific RFP and accelerate a little bit the process. At this stage, the recommendation is to go technology agnostic. So this is the conclusion. Sorry, you'll stop hearing my voice, and let me know if you have any question. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Are there any questions? Director Pereira? I feel like there's one in there somewhere.
Hello. For me, having we're looking at having maybe a site available, and so if we could create a nearby neighbor that would use the energy. I know you have it as unlikely in your presentation, but I think that potential is more likely. And so just kind of in the process, I don't want us to unevaluate that. I think, we're an ag community. In ag, you can use, both heat and electricity in your processing. And so I don't want us to forego that option just yet. So I guess my question is, can we do that?
Great. No, that's great to hear. And I think, having a technology agnostic RFP would leave the door open for these opportunities. I think, for direct thermal uses with industrial users, typically you would negotiate directly with the end user, not necessarily have a developer come in. But and I think that was also the project that was evaluated in the past, right? Was a direct sending the gas to a local user. So we are keeping it open at this stage.
Great, thank you.
Kim, like, what if you had to ballpark? Say you were just going to go to the most the option that would give you the most bang for your buck in returns. What kind of dollars investments would it take to get you to the point where you're actually like? And I'm asking you. I know that's a pretty tough question to answer, but like ballpark, tens of millions, millions of dollars. Like, what are you looking at that if you put this out on the street for somebody to come in and for it to be worth their while, what kind of investment would they be looking at?
So the highest investment would be for RNG. It would be like the approach selected, right, is design, build, finance, operate, and maintain. So it wouldn't be on Merced County, right? And so typically the developer, would invest, and then they would share a percentage of their gross revenues. For example, these different models. So they could, you could have a revenues based on the gas provided, like dollars per MMBTU provided, for example. Typically that puts a lot of risk on the developer. Typically, we would recommend maybe like the developer sharing a percentage of their gross revenues. It's in the, it depends on the technologies, but we'll put it in the 10 to 40 million, capex, that level of capex, depending on the options.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Pereira?
Yeah, and one last question. The 19% of the nitrogen, what in this process will we look for a market for that item as well? Is that part of what we can do?
That's an interesting question. Monetizing the nitrogen, is that the question?
Yeah.
I don't have a reference or an example on that one. We're definitely seeing interest in recovering the CO2, as I mentioned, especially for larger flows.
I mean, we import nitrogen from all over the world right here into Merced County. So, it's got to have value somewhere. And then is it enough value to pay for the process again?
We actually are doing a pilot at a wastewater treatment plant in Canada, recovering the ammonia there and either electrolyzing it or cracking it to produce hydrogen. So, who knows? There are a lot of potential pathways. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be the cheapest nitrogen maker in Merced County. All the farmers will come to us, right? Well, I appreciate it. I know that I'm not seeing any other questions from the dais, but I know this is something, after we went through that crazy experiment with UC Merced and they backed out on us last minute, and I know Director Pereira has been long on this case of, we're burning this off, and is there a potential option out there? And I appreciate staff for listening to that and at least getting us to a point where we had a conversation. And I mean, if the answer is no, then the answer is no. But looks like we need to, at least for me, comfortable to the point where what the work that's been done, that there is a potential option there to go forward. At this point, we got the cost of some consultants that are obviously a lot smarter than us, that researched and did all this work, and then we get to a point if we put something out there, and then ultimately the market's going to dictate whether this is viable or not. And if it's not, then we just keep flaring it off. But if it is, then maybe we have something else to explore. All right, any members of the public have any comments on this item? Not seeing any? All right, thank you, sir, appreciate it. Yes, go ahead, wrap it up.
Sorry, yeah, just to bring it full circle for next steps. We're currently working with council to explore the contract approach. And so we'll be meeting in January with the full team, council and GHD, to discuss that. And then the hope is to go out to RFP in early spring. So we'd like to get this moving and see what our options are.
Yeah, and I just want to say, I'm going to say again from my perspective, I do appreciate the approach where we're looking for someone that's going to take this on. I'm not interested in spending any more of taxpayers' monies going down this rabbit hole, because we've done that and it burnt us once, and I don't want to get burnt again. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
All right, we're moving right along to item number 13. This is the Executive Director's Report. Stacy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to circle back to Director Lewis and confirm that it is West I Street, so it is the project you're referring to, and it is also the project that Caltrans is bringing a significant investment to, so the movement of the measure money is to move it on to a different project because Caltrans is bringing in the funds to complete that. So I'll still follow up, but wanted you to go away with that knowledge. I want to take this moment as we're in December of 25 to also thank our team. We have 70, we're almost at 80 employees across all of our agencies. 2025, I mean, we always, I feel, do really good work, and we have an excellent team of people who do it, but 2025 was had some firsts for us. So, we were the successful hosts of the San Joaquin Valley Regional Policy Conference held in Merced for the very first time, and we broke it because nobody wants to host now. No one wants to follow in our footsteps. So that was a big success. We hosted the California Transportation Commission for the first time. We completed significant components of our landfill infrastructure improvement projects. If you've been out to the site, it looks incredible with our new shop in particular. I drove by, I was out with James earlier this week, and we're out where the old shop was, and it's still, I mean, it looks like it's from like a Steinbeck novel. Like it should be from like, I don't know, the Great Depression. I mean, it was really bad. So beautiful new shop out there. As James mentioned, got the well 45 gas migration issue resolved. In transit, we purchased the property across from our operations and maintenance facility, which is going to be the critical location for our investment in zero emission infrastructure for both allowing our battery electric infrastructure there, and then to have the space to do our hydrogen infrastructure at our existing facility. I was really proud of our ability to respond to the need that arose with the federal government shutdown when the county HSA had indicated the demand for fare relief had spiked. We were able to pivot there and appreciated the board support in allowing us to do those types of things. I know that it was really in step with what so many other local agencies and jurisdictions were doing. So just really proud of that work that happened. And I know there's a lot there that I didn't mention, but just want to say thank you. I give them. I don't know. I'm pretty ornery. I think sometimes I like to tease them about a lot of things. I know that's a shock, but we really do have a great team, and just want to say thanks to everybody for doing what you do and, coming back every Monday. I appreciate you. Also want to say that 2026 is going to be the year of Measure V. It has to be. We are hitting our 10-year anniversary, and as Chair Silvera said, we have a 30-year measure. We really need to be thinking about it as we have 10 more years, because we know elections are the turnout's best in presidential years, and we want to consider those things, but in terms of how, what our renewal would look like. So I am going to be proposing a strategic workshop around kind of what you all would like to see the measure deliver, and then kind of back out on a timeline of what that looks like in terms of our implementation plan updates and what the goals are for the next 20 years. And let me see. Okay, and then I have something. I know this is a longer. I don't know. You guys probably think I talk plenty all the time, but this is a longer director's report. I heard that too, but I do want to. I know. I'm turning a new leaf. I'm coming out of my shell here. I do want to share something that is, I want to share it for a couple of reasons. One, it's really big news. And two, I want, just for the record, to kind of document a number of things. So I know that the board is aware that the Atwater Merced Expressway project was identified as a project of air quality concern by EPA and the Federal Highway Administration several years ago. And so since that time, the project's been under federal review for its potential impacts to air quality. That was started 5 years ago. The project team, led by the county, with support from a number of consultants, and along with MCAG and Trinity, that started, is a consultant under the MCAG umbrella, but actually is now under contract with the county as well. They are superb air quality consultants, transportation air quality conformity consultants. So that team has just been, it's been like a constant thread of activity over the last few years on very technical work and review with our federal partners. We became very close, very, very close to resolving the issues this spring, and that's when the federal action to rescind the California Clean Air Act waivers hit and were applied across the state, and it impacted our ability to, at the 11th hour, cross the finish line. We weren't quite sure what that was going to look like, and we worked very hard on a number of fronts. I had the lovely experience of participating in a panel at a CTC meeting on impacts, and we had an excellent update just before Thanksgiving that CARB had worked expeditiously with EPA, and they were able to find a solution to that impact that came as a result of the federal rescission. So that was kind of this, it felt like while you finally, your house is on fire, you put your house fire out and you realize the neighborhood's on fire, and you're like, okay, so there was just this multitude of things. So that got resolved right before Thanksgiving, which allowed the AME team to submit our data and our last submissions, and to complete the interagency consultation process. So all of that to say is I'm happy to report that after 5 years, our adventure came to an end yesterday, or at least this part of the adventure, when the county received concurrence from EPA and Federal Highways that the AME project conforms to our air quality standards. This clears the path for completing the remaining technical studies and the final environmental clearance. There's still a lot of work to be done, but this approval is what has been holding up the project for the last 5 years. So I just want to note, in terms of our public engagement, that's something we really focused on throughout this process. So all of our project level conformity information for the project was seen by that team of air quality partners countless times. I mean, I can count at least 10 times where with the documentation, all of that was provided over the 5 years. Countless number of small group technical meetings that had occurred. The modeling for the project started in 2019. The first interagency consultation meeting was in 2020. And then somewhere along the way, actually I think it was in 2024, the whole process was tweaked a little. There were more public review requirements added, so we pivoted, we adjusted, and we kept going. We had 4 public meetings. Our review periods at different points in the decision lasted from 2 weeks to 30 days. We created an air quality planning page on our website to have be a repository of information for all the project data, the meeting agendas. During the actual review periods as they happened, we would have an upcoming meeting kind of banner front and center on our website to try to keep attention there. We always had contact information for staff for comments that we were soliciting, and especially easy access to our information to participate in our virtual meetings. So all of that to say, this is a huge milestone. I know that we had the team, we met Wednesday for this last approval, Wednesday morning at 8:30. And when we were done, we were all texting each other and got back on the call to kind of have this moment of, did this just happen? And I say all of the technical stuff, but I really want to congratulate and thank Director McDaniel for his leadership on this project. He and I work together on a lot of things over the years between YARTS and 99 and everything. This has been the constant thread. I don't know that I've had a conversation with him in 5 years where he didn't say what's the latest on AME. I've lost count of how many meetings, letters, phone calls, trips to DC, times I've had to talk him down from a ledge of like, don't do that yet. Or, hey, I need you to make a phone call to try to get this project over the finish line. So just for being a steadfast champion, keeping the momentum up, keeping the attention where it needs to be. So just both a thank you for helping me do my job, and congratulations, because I know it's been a huge project for you as well. So we're looking forward to getting over the environmental process and get into construction here in a couple years, spend down that measure money, and all of those good things. So that was the good one. That's the long one. The last thing I want to say is, don't forget, we have the open house that starts in 10 minutes at our office. Santa will be there. You can take a picture with him. 5 to 7, just down the way. We hope you come by, have a snack, have a drink, take a picture with Santa, all of those good things. And I will not speak again from the dais until next year.
Very good. All right. Thank you, Stacy. Director Pedroso, anything?
I just wanted to apologize for missing the last meeting. I was in Sacramento at the High Speed Rail Authority meeting to kind of figure out and get an update about that. And then other than that, I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Director Serrato.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you for a great year, and I will offer a $100 Christmas present to anybody who can go on longer than Stacy just did.
Oh, I can do it easy. I can do that in my sleep. Director Pacheco.
Merry Christmas, Happy New Year.
Director McDaniel.
I just want to thank Stacy for this EPA. I mean, this has been 5 years of where I've gone in with a bat swinging with the EPA in Washington, D.C., and where I've been to the door and she wouldn't let me go in and talk to them because she's afraid that we were going to disrupt it. But a big thank you to Elizabeth, Stacy, Nathan did a large load. The consultants did what they're supposed to do. But if it wasn't for the EPA holding us up on this modeling project, AME would already be built at this point. So hopefully we're moving dirt in a year, and we're doing some ribbon cuttings here in about 2 years. Thank you.
Director Pereira.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, first of all, to our staff, I would like to say thank you. I think y'all do a phenomenal job, and you make Stacy look good. So anyways, you can hold that over if you'd like. And to my colleagues, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and to everyone else. So thank you.
Director Lewis.
Well, this is my second time this year being here, and both subjects of matter have been Measure V. But with that being said, I want to wish all of the directors a Merry Christmas and a very safe New Year, and to your staff, Stacy, for the work that they do to keep this organization going. Thank you.
Director Sammer.
Yeah, I just want to same things as everybody else. I want to wish everybody Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and I want to thank Stacy and staff for always treating me like a king. Every time I go for Calvin's meeting, everything's always set up. So, I mean, I wish I could get that well treated at home, but I can't. So, but again, thanks to everybody, and I wish us a lot of success next year as well. Thank you.
Director Kale.
Well, I want to say ditto.
Ditto.
To what everybody said. Merry Christmas. Staff, you guys are absolutely incredible. And I especially want to wish you guys a Happy New Year and a safe New Year. And I can't wait for 2026 to start. Thank you all.
Thank you. Emily, anything? Yeah. Again, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Stacy. Thank you for your leadership. You've done a really great job of surrounding yourself with really good people that that is like no other cog in the state. In our meetings, we talk about regional waste management. We talk about the bus. We talk about other buses. We talk about all these things. We throw a little bit of housing element in there. We keep you guys all on your toes. But you've assembled a really great staff, and it makes our jobs all easier up here. And just always appreciate the willingness and the ability of staff to answer questions, as we all wear other hats, and then we get to put these hats on. And so having the great staff around you really is good for all of us. So with that, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll adjourn the meeting at 4:54.